Hello, and welcome back to our second history lesson this week. And we're going to think about where the Saxons came from and why they might have come to Britain. Now, we're going to have a look at a few maps. I did promise you that. And here's our first one. And this is a map of the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Northern Europe. And some of these places we heard about in our last lesson. We're just going to think about where we are and how that might affect some of the things that we know about them. So first off, we have the United Kingdom. It's down here, and London's right down here in the south, and we know that Slough is just off to the west of London. Now, this kind of gives us an idea. If we know what our weather is like here, if you look at where Denmark, northern Germany, Sweden, and Norway are in comparison to us, they're much further north, which means we should assume that more than likely it is colder than our temperature as well. We also have hot air winds that come up from the Gulf Stream that follow the sea, and they blow against the UK from down here in the southwest. And this actually brings quite a lot of warm weather with it. So the United Kingdom is warmer than it should be, which is why actually it is a good fertile land and a good place to live, which gives you an idea of why some of them might have moved so from here. We have Norway, and you look at the landscape of Norway, and all of this is mountainous terrain, which means you don't have the space for crops and land. You look at places like northern Germany around here in the Netherlands, and Denmark up here, and the bottom of Sweden down here, and you can see there are lots of lakes, lots of low-lying land, which means it's common flooding ground. And that might also link into the fact of why they went in search of more fertile or better land to live in. So let's have a think back to yesterday, and let's think back to what our push and pull effects might be. So why might you move to a different country? And there can be lots of different reasons. And I want you to take a moment now. I want you to pause and think to yourself, if you had the choice, is there somewhere else in the world you might move to? Might you think, actually, I'd quite like to move to Australia? Could I think that I might actually want to move to America? Might want to move further in down south into Europe because it's hotter? What are the reasons why you would choose to move there? And what are the reasons why you might choose not to move there? In other words, what are the pushes and pulls of your decision on whether or not to move there? Pause now and have a think. Okay, so let's say, for example, I might like to move to Australia. It's nice and hot down there. They've got lots of space. It's cheaper to live there. And my sister lives there. So because of that, they're my pull factors. They're the reasons why I might go. I might also have some push factors, which are pushing me out. The fact that we've got COVID here in more of extreme, and over there it isn't. The fact that it's cheaper over there and expensive to live here. These would be push factors. There might be some factors that also make us feel like we don't want to go, i.e. the rest of my family still living in Britain. So we have to take those into account when we're thinking. So let's have a look. We might think that there's a new job. We might have somewhere else we can go to. There might be a nicer climate. It might be hotter. It might be more rainfall if you're farming. Generally just a nicer climate in order to live in. Maybe you're leaving because of war or persecution, and persecution is when something is done to you that shouldn't be done to you. Maybe there are more opportunities. Maybe the quality of life is different. And we'll talk about that one in more detail in a second. Or maybe it's to be with your family and friends. Now quickly, pause quickly and just skim down this list and see if you can say which ones are push factors and which ones are pull factors. I'll give you a second to do that. Okay, so I'll tell you now there's a trick question in there. A new job, what do people think Yes, a new job is a pull factor. More than likely, it's a reason to go somewhere else. If they're offering a new job, something a little bit different, more exciting, you're more likely going to take it. That'll be pulling you away. A nicer climate, a better place to live. Yes, you're right. It'd be another pull factor, something, a reason to go there. Avoiding war or persecution. And this must be a push factor because what you're talking about here is you're trying to get away from a bad situation. How about more opportunities? Anyone? Yeah, pull, you're right. It's the reason why we might go. There might be more things to do there. Quality of life. What do we mean by quality of life? Is quality of life just the good aspects? Or could quality of life also encompass things which are bad? For example, if your quality of life was poor, you didn't have very much money, you couldn't afford to live anywhere, you didn't have very much food, then it would be a push factor, a reason to leave. Or are you thinking of the other way around? The quality of life somewhere else will be better than the quality of life you have at the moment, in which case it would be a pull factor. So quality of life, depending on the way in which you view it, can be a push or a pull factor. And that was our trick. How about to be with friends or family? I'm assuming this means that those friends or family live in a different place, and in which case, yes, indeed, it would be a pull factor. So these are reasons to leave, they're reasons to go. And we talked yesterday about some of the reasons why the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes may have decided to leave and their push and pull factors. So here is Mr. Angle, might be an Angle, might be a Jute, maybe a Saxon, and he's going to tell us a little bit about why he left. So, good morrow, child. We Angles, together with the Saxons and Jutes, invaded Britain after the Romans left, which we know about, and we know it was around 410, 430 AD. And this is, we know it because we know when the Romans left, and we know that they came in afterwards. We came across the North Sea in wooden boats from what we now call Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands. This is another thing that we're talking about. And this is the fact that when they came across, actually the North Sea is not a very nice sea when you're in a wooden boat because it can get very rough and it is very cold. So the factors that are pushing them out, or the pull factors from Britain, must have been very significant in order for them to feel like it was worthwhile leaving and going to a new place. We are good farmers, but our land is often flooded and it's very difficult to grow crops. So we are looking for new places to raise our families. Now, this again is that pushing out factor, or a pull if you're thinking about the quality of land elsewhere. And it's important because even if they're good farmers, if the land you're working on has troubles, i.e. flooding, or is difficult to grow crops on, then that makes your life harder. Why would you not go in search of something that was better? Because the armies of Rome had left, and some Britons invited us to keep out invaders from Scotland and Ireland, offering us money in return. That's their new job, isn't it? If we think back to that list before, that pull of a new job, we're going to get paid for looking after people or just being bodyguards, basically, doing a job which was very simple and ones that we had done before. So a nice pull factor, and they get the bonus of going somewhere where there is much better land and more fertile land for farming. And other people, like King Arthur, tried to fight us off. However, we soon settled what we now called England, or Anglo-land, which is where the name comes from. Often these people that were pushed out, they weren't necessarily defeated, but they were pushed away into places like Wales, Cornwall, Scotland, and those sort of areas. And that's why they became different kingdoms in the end, because they weren't ruled by Anglo-Saxons. And that's why England became Anglo-land, because of that reason. So those that who didn't like the Anglo-Saxons fled westward and went to live in Wales or Cornwall. We talked about that. So let's have a look at a map. Here's our map. We've got a map of the UK and include on the far side over here, if I just move myself out of the way, a little bit of Denmark and a little bit here, actually of Norway, but Sweden is close by as well. Now what we're going to do, I want you to have a go at sketching this map. Now, it doesn't have to be spot on. There's a lot of detail in this map, but I want you to have a rough idea of the outline, just so that you can use it. You can pause it now and draw that yourself. Take time, don't rush it. Remember what we said about drawing. If you rush it, it's not going to be the best you can possibly do. Take your time, try and present it in a nice way. Maybe draw, when you draw this, after you've added the arrows in a minute, add color. Do the land in green, the sea in blue. If you do that, then it just sets your map off a little bit better. So have a go. Draw a map of Britain, much like you can see on the screen. Then add the coastline of Europe in here, because this is going to be important when we think about where the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes came from. And then I want you to research where they came from, what land they came from. Label onto the map the areas where they came from. I'll give you a hint. There might have been something from last lesson that you could use. And then I want you to draw the color-coded arrows from where they left to where they landed on the British coast. Yellow for the Jutes, red for the Saxons, and green for the Angles. And see if you can find the names of where they landed. Try and present this in the best possible way you can. Take your time. Show your pride in your work. And then post it on Tapestry and let me see it. Pause now and have a go at that. And then come back for the rest and the answer. Okay, so let's move on and see what we can find out. And here we have it. This is the map, similar to what we saw before. And this is probably much more similar to the outline sort of map that you might have. Not as detailed, but does have the important information. And that's where the clans or tribes originated from and where they landed on the British Isles. So we have here, first, we'll talk about the Jutes in yellow. They started off in northern Denmark. So this was the most southerly part. And they traveled across the North Sea and landed down here in Kent and came across the south of England. We had the Saxons, this red arrow, coming from Germany and the Netherlands in this area here. And they traveled across the sea, not as far as the other two, into East Anglia, this bulge which is on the side of the British Isles. And then we had the Angles, who came from southern Denmark, and they travelled across. And as they travelled across, they split and went to and landed in two different places. They landed in what is now called Northumbria, which is right in the northern area underneath the border with Scotland, and the other is Mercia, which is now the Midlands. Where and which one of these clan tribes do you think landed closest to Slough? Some of you may think it was the Saxons as they landed in East Anglia, but this is such a large area and much further north from London, which is down here, than you think. Actually, the ones that landed closest to Slough would have been the Jutes, as they came in, took Kent, Surrey, and Hampshire as their own. So this is the tribe that is most likely to have been close to where we live now. Okay, so why have they come here? So I now have another task for you. This is all about whether we can use our research skills to find out a little bit more ourselves. So we know where they came from, and we know that they made a long and dangerous journey to get here. But I want you to use your research skills. And you can look at the link at the bottom. It will be in the comments description of the video as well. Just click rather than having to copy that out. And you can find out what were all the reasons why the Anglo-Saxons came to Britain. I want you to think about which one do you think was the most pressing, or do you think they were all of equal weight? You can look at the website that is there, and you can look in any other way you like. This is your time and your chance to do some nice research yourself. Let me know what you find out in our live session. And for now, that's the end of the lesson, and we'll see you next time. Bye.